Remember that famous picture, very dramatic picture of a man standing in front of a Chinese tank, and the tank stops? Can you simply cold-bloodedly run over someone with a tank? How could you? How could I? What was I supposed to do? The guy was standing there. So we'll run him over. Can't do that. Well, why not? What, do you love him? No, I don't know him and he's the enemy. So run him over. Can't do that. There are two commandments that define our relationship with God. One commandment is, and you shall love God your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your might. Love. And then there's a commandment, you should fear God, your God, and serve him. Love and fear. We imagine that we understand something about love, but it's very hard to explain fear of God. What is fear of God? We know for sure that it doesn't mean fear of punishment. Fear of punishment is not fear of God. Fear of punishment is self-preservation and fear of pain. That is not a virtue. That's just self-defense. What is fear of God? So most people will say it means awe, not fear, awe. You're in awe of God. Is that in any way related to fear? So let's get some definition. Any feeling, any emotion, any relationship that makes me feel more substantial, fuller, richer, more real, that belongs in the category of love. Love makes you feel full, significant. Anything that makes you feel humble, anything that reminds you of your smallness or of your vulnerability, has to belong in the category of fear. Fear is any time you experience a humbling or maybe even humiliating experience. Anything that reminds you how small you are, how insignificant you are, how frail. So it doesn't have to be threatening pain or threatening death. Anything that humbles you. So if you're in the presence of somebody really, really smart, you don't feel so smart yourself. If you're in the presence of somebody very, very strong, your own strength suddenly becomes insignificant and feeble, and you're not feeling so great about yourself. That's got to go in the category of fear. All fear involves the feeling of vulnerability. In fact, humility is more related to fear than to love. This gives us a very, very good, useful, workable definition for what is fear of God. Let's use an analogy. You're walking past a swimming pool, and you notice somebody is struggling, they're drowning. You figure, look, I'm not the lifeguard, it's not my job, not my problem, you continue walking. There's something wrong with you. How could you? Right? Most people would say, how could you? You just kept on walking? How could you? They don't say, What, don't you love the person who's drowning? Because you don't love them, that's why you didn't save them? No, nobody would introduce love into the conversation. Because what's love got to do with it? They would all say, how could you? You just kept on walking? Or, how could you not jump in and save them? How could you not? So, I can do you a favor because I love you. Or I can do you a favor because, what am I going to just walk away? Can't just walk away. You need help. The difference is significant. If I do you a favor because I love you, well then if I love you a lot, I will do you a big favor, or many favors. If I love you less, I'll do smaller favors and not as many. And if I just barely love you, I'll barely do you a favor. So what I'm going to do for you depends on my feeling, my mood, my love, my temperament. The bigger my love, the bigger the favor. The smaller the love, smaller the favor. But if you have the feeling, how could you walk away? How could you just walk past a person drowning and how could you? How could you not jump in and save them? And that is so powerful because even if you say, I can't jump in and save them, I can't swim myself. People don't buy it. You sat there and calculated how good you are at swimming and determined whether or not you should jump in and say, it doesn't work that way. You see someone's life is in danger, you do something. Most decent people would jump in even though they know they can't swim. Why? Because it's not about me. So here's the huge difference. If I am motivated by how could I not, then it doesn't depend on how much I love you. It depends on how much you need. So if your life is in danger, I will do anything this is your life. Love you a little, love you a lot, that is not the question. The bigger your need, the greater my response. You have these incidents where a child is stuck under a bus or under a truck, and someone will walk over and lift the bus with his bare hands. How is that even possible? So the experts will say, well, you got an adrenaline rush. You're functioning on adrenaline. True. If I was stuck under a bus, could I lift it? My adrenaline is certainly pumping. And yet I can't. I can't. For myself, I can't. But for someone else, who I barely know or don't know at all, I will lift the truck. And I don't stop to think, I can barely lift a shopping bag. How am I going to lift a truck? You don't make calculations about yourself because it's not about yourself. And so you focus and therefore function on the person's need. How desperate is the person? That's how intense and strong you're going to get. You're as strong as the person's need, not as strong as your motivation. That makes you Superman. Now imagine saying this about God. God asks you to keep kosher. God asks you to be moral. God asks you to give charity. Can you just walk away? The creator of the world asks me to do this and I'm just going to blow him off? Just keep walking? Someone stops you in the street and you're a Jewish man and he asks you to put on tefillin and you say, nah, and just keep on walking? Can you do that? I know a man from Minneapolis who did that. And he couldn't sleep for a week. If I'm doing what God asks, because how can I say no to him? How can I not? It's his world. I'm his creation. How could I not? If I do that, then I become as strong as him. Because I'm not functioning on my energy, I'm functioning on his. So how strong will I be when I'm doing a mitzvah? Stronger than when I'm lifting a bus. If you're doing what God asks, how strong are you going to be? Depends on how intensely God wants that mitzvah. And God wants it infinitely, essentially, eternally. Now, that may be one of the secrets to Jewish survival. The reason we're still here, despite the entire world's effort, in different times, different places, we're still here, we're still Jewish. At least part of the secret is that we function on God's need rather than our own. We don't always use love as our motivation. More often, we use how can you not. Now, how can you not belongs to the category of fear. How can I not is a humble reaction. All right, let's consider the opposite. What would you say about a person who can walk past a drowning swimmer and not be disturbed? What would you make of such a person? He's not religious enough. He's not pious enough. He's not spiritual enough. He's not idealistic enough. No, you would say there's something in his DNA or something in his human character that is missing. It's not human to be able to walk away. Remember that famous picture, very dramatic picture of a man standing in front of a Chinese tank, and the tank stops? Can you simply cold-bloodedly run over someone with a tank? How could you? How could I? What was I supposed to do? The guy was standing there. So we'll run him over. Can't do that. Well, why not? What, do you love him? No, I don't know him and he's the enemy. So run him over. Can't do that. Mahatma Gandhi forced the British out of India by laying down in front of a tank. On the other hand, if you lay down in front of a terrorist, a jihad terrorist tank, you're going to stop the tank? Or are they going to run right over you and celebrate? These are two different creatures. And it's not a question of religion, it's a question of humanity. There is something in the human being that can't walk away. Can't walk away when a baby is crying and needs to be diapered. And it's not your baby. And you can't walk away. And you're not afraid of the baby. They're going to grow up and come looking for you to take revenge. And yet you can't walk away. There's something in the human soul. And then you have to wonder, what about those people who can and do walk away? And it doesn't keep them awake for a week. Doesn't bother them at all. This is not a difference in ideology. This is a different human being. Or something of the human being missing. So, we have this beautiful definition now. What does it mean to love God? To do His mitzvahs out of pleasure and enjoyment because you love Him. Or fear God. And you do the mitzvah and you don't commit the sin because how could you? He's the creator. It's His world. How do you eat without making a blessing when it's not it's His food? It's His creation. You may have heard this joke from me already before, but it's a good one. An atheist says to God, which is already funny, no? An atheist says to God, we used to need you, but we don't anymore because we have technology. God says, really? Can you create a man out of dust? Yeah. We have the technology. So God says, let me see you do it. So he starts gathering up some dust. And God says to him, oh, no, not my dust. You may be able to create a man out of God's dust, but create your own dust. No, you can't. Because you can't create something from nothing. So, even the dust is not yours. How do you help yourself to things in the world without even asking permission or making a blessing or acknowledging who the owner is, who the boss is? What are you doing? How could you? Well, that's called fear of God. Fear means, how could I not? How could I not do the mitzvah? Or how could I commit the sin? That is not generally related to love. That's got to be more related to fear. But then you got to wonder, if I can't walk away from your pain, if I can't ignore your need, if I can't dismiss your agony, is there any greater love than that? Is that what we call true love? Is that the kind of love that the Torah is talking about? Not romantic love. So really, it turns out that love and fear they're inseparable. You can't have a love without a fear, and you can't have fear without love. Well, yeah, you can be afraid of a snake without any love. But I'm talking about in a human relationship. If you love someone, you got to fear the loss. And if you are afraid to lose someone, there's got to be some love there. Or maybe the fear of the snake is the flip side of the self-love. You love yourself, so you fear the snake. And you will fear the snake commensurate to how much you love your life. If you don't love yourself too much, you don't hate the snake too much. Or you're not afraid of it. Anyway, the point of it is, love and fear are really inseparable. Two sides of the same coin. And in fact, with a little stretch of the imagination, fear, how can I not, is the truest love of them all. We have a Sunday night program for VIPs that you might be interested in. It's informal, it's questions and answers, it's conversation. It's really relaxed, it's really pleasant, enjoyable, informative, and kind of community-like. It's a Sunday night program, there's a Wednesday morning program for the VIPs, and there's a Wednesday night program. All of it just conversation, casual, laid back, unscripted. So join us, take a look, click the link below and see which of the three suits you best, and join us for some enjoyable conversation. If you enjoyed this conversation or this topic and you're looking for more information, or you want to hear it again from another angle, there's a way to do that, and that is in this book. It's all there. Order it from Amazon. You can read it, reread it, and share it.